All right, gang, as you all know, the days and weeks leading up to the election were an emotional roller coaster. I know you told me. One minute you'd see a poll and go, yeah, we got this. Trump is crushing it. And then the next minute you see another poll and you're like, oh, crap, it's over. What are we going to do? And as you know, whenever I got in front of the camera during those weeks, I showed you my consistent steel resolve. I proved myself to be calm and cool, a voice of assurance that, yes, Donald Trump has got this. And then when I would bid you a farewell and I'd turn off the camera, I'd start to hyperventilate. And I'd go into a complete panic, and my shaking hands would rush to my X feed, and I would rush to the account of my next guest, because all throughout the turbulence and the insanity of that election, this is the man who consistently remained steady as a rock, armed with the best data analysis out there, and analyzed this electorate and this election, not just accurately, but brilliantly. Joe Scarborough might call it cogently. And he is here to take a much deserved victory lap. And we all have to give him the biggest cyber applause out there and show him how appreciative we are for what he did for us in the months leading up to the election. This is the man who kept me sane so I could keep you sane. The one and only Rich Barris of the People's Pundit. Rich, my friend. Yes, Lord Richard, King Richard.
Thanks
Dude,
for having me as always, brother. I appreciate it.
Dude, I mean, that was completely heartfelt. I think that's exactly the role you fulfilled for more people than you can ever imagine out there. I mean, you were a voice of reason. You're a voice of stability, of balance in a turbulent, mediated world, a simulated reality that's always benefiting one political side over and against the others, and then makes the other political side, our side, feel like we're crazy. And you brought sanity. You brought so much sanity in the midst of that. I have to ask you, do you ever at any point think, wait, maybe you're the one going nuts? you know, maybe these charlatans are right.
I think that I always try to remember 2016 when those moments come, because they inevitably do come, especially when you have such a dishonest election mafia out there, which is why I do what I do, because I feel like George Gallup was right. Number one, this all doesn't work. We're just way too big. It isn't the early republic anymore. We're way too big. And we need to have accurate public opinion measured, or we need public opinion accurately measured. And that information needs to get passed on to our legislators when they're deciding what to do. And it also obviously needs to make for a smart a campaign, but then also too, Americans kind of need to know what to expect, and their dishonesty was really couched this time in this, like, oh, let me hedge my bet, it's a 50-50 election, but let me just give a slight edge to Kamala. Steve, never. Kamala Harris never led in our polling. Never. When she had a modest bounce, it was a response bias. Everybody knew, and they didn't say anything. It was like, of course, some people did jump on it after we did first, but the fact of the matter is, for the better part of 2 years, this thing has been Donald Trump's election to lose. He was going to put together a historically diverse coalition, and I'm proud of the work we did this year, even dating back to the primary and before any votes were even cast in the primary. Folks, the Trump or bust vote that I came on the show and talked to you about was real. All right. His improvement with non-white voters was not a mirage. Okay. None of this was ever really a question for me, but yes, they do make you, because it's a barrage, it's a barrage, and they do maybe give you pause here and there. But I try to think back to 16 when they first did it to me, and I was
You know,
naive.
you
And
know,
I'm not now.
And you're not now.
Yeah.
There are response bias polls, and then there's Ann Seltzer.
And then there's Ann. Good old
And
Ann.
good old Ann. I mean, what the heck? There's response bias polls, and there's Maris. There's response bias polls, and there's morning compost, as you guys love to call them. I mean, what is this? Is this a racket? Are those
Yeah,
guys literally part of a racket here?
it is.
Like a pro-Democrat racket?
Marist is a racket. It's a
Okay.
racket. There's now ample evidence for Marist, if they were objective, to go and look at the work that they have done over not just the last two presidential cycles, but this has been going on for a while with Marist, especially in the Rust Belt and Sun Belts. They have been wrong. They again can have the dubious distinction of getting every single battleground state incorrect. Every single one, even the ones where they had Trump up, like Trump did not win Arizona by a point. Okay. All right. It's just so ridiculous. Kamala Harris, it was not even possible for her to be ahead in those Great Lakes states, but let's pretend she was. She was ahead by the same margin in every single state. I mean, it just tells you like these are not statistical these are not statistically likely outcomes. Okay. And there's hurting when a pollster wants to look like others. And unfortunately, we saw some of that where we had cowards, and I'm going to call them out. At Mitchell Research, for instance, he had the right result. Yes, we knew that it was going to shrink from the 3-point lead that we had Trump in October. It was going to shrink when the rest of her base came home. But Mitchell had the right outcome. He got scared. He got scared when Marist and others put their polls out, and he redid his final poll and had Harris up. And it was just disgusting to watch. People do this stuff when they know better. When it comes to Ann Seltzer, I will tell you this. I found out the Thursday before the poll was released that Ann had Harris up in Iowa. I found out through the same people that we told you she was holding a Biden plus Trump plus 19 over Biden. I came in, we talked about that, and
Yep.
I remember when that happened. I also, the same people who told me that she spiked the poll before the Democratic primary in 2020 because the Biden campaign did not want her putting the poll out with Biden in fourth place. Pete Buttigieg, they came up with this manufactured excuse about Pete Buttigieg not being on the questionnaire for one interviewer, and they used him as a foil, which he was happy to be because he actually thought he was going to beat Bernie Sanders in Iowa, and he didn't want the Seltzer poll showing him in second place. So he was happy to play that game, but that was a fabricated story. And I got my hands on the actual poll and put it on Twitter. And so did Mike Cernovich, by the way. And we were both told that that was a fabricated story by different sources. So fast forward to 2020. And Barnes and I are on What Are the Odds live. Fox News, we're polling live, and we're showing people Ohio and Iowa. Fox News drops a Biden plus 3 in Ohio while we're tracking live and showing Trump plus 8. And also Trump plus 8 in Iowa, and Ann Seltzer drops a tie. She's been narrative polling for a long time. Iowa was never a tie. All right. And then fast forward all these years later, and we found this out. I will just tell you this. From what I understand, the reason and it got worse as time went on is I am told January 6th broke her brain. She did your very typical credential professional class woman freak out after January 6th, and she lost her objectivity. There were people who were trying to express to the Des Moines Register that Ann is not capable of being objective anymore, and they were damn near fired on the spot. So they were so like, you can't call in a question the chastity of the great Ann Seltzer, like she's still wearing a freaking belt or something, Steve. I mean, give me a
The
break.
blasphemy, right? The Alan Lichtman blasphemy.
It's blasphemy, right? It's just outrageous. And then she was calling people all over town. She called, and I'll blow people up right now. She called a lawyer friend of hers. She called 2 Harris surrogates. And when someone was listening, overheard what she was saying, she said something to the effect of, "I'm about to drop a bomb in this son of a bitch's lap." Talking about Donald Trump and cackling with it to her Democratic friends who are attached to the Harris campaign.
Right.
Outrageous behavior.
It was.
Outrageous behavior.
It
And then
was.
she goes on Mark Halpern to try to explain herself. And everyone who's a pollster, everyone who knows what they're talking about, you had him on recently. Mark Mitchell and I listened to that interview, and we looked at each other like, oh my God, this woman is truly a liar. She's
Yeah.
full of it. The excuse that she caught some abortion vote from college educated women, load of crap. Abortion wasn't even her number one issue. They pulled a Starbucks line in Des Moines or something because threats to democracy was the number one issue in the Des Moines poll. And by the way, Trump won the threats to democracy vote,
Right, exactly. The irony of
which, by the
ironies.
way, we had him doing barely, but we had him doing. So
Right,
we
right,
even caught that. And we told
right.
people about that at the time. Anytime you see a poll with threats to democracy is the number one issue, and Harris with an advantage, be suspect because it
Wow.
means at the very best there's a response bias that favors liberals. But the truth
Or
is, it's
or
probably
the
not
narrative
worse
polling, like you
or
mentioned.
worse. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, or the
And that's
narrative
what
polling.
Anne did. She went on Mark and she made an excuse that did not even comport with what her data was showing. And just lastly, and I'll shut up, I went back to the last couple of weeks of our national collection and I took all of our Iowa responses, which came to almost 400 responses just from Iowa, right? As a subset. And I was looking at it and I'm like, this is actually fairly representative. It was like 53% female. It was like demographically, by race and education, everything looked pretty good. So I said, well, let me just isolate these responses. Let me see just a mild weighting variable. Let me see what it comes to. And it came to almost identical to the margin Trump won Iowa by.
Wow.
So it wasn't
Yeah.
some mistake. This was
No.
Anne being
Right.
Anne.
This is Anne being Anne. And
Sick of it.
just to think of all, I mean, I did a whole video of the way Rachel Maddow ran away with that poll over that weekend, which I think was the
All right.
point. We had,
That's the
do you
point.
remember we had that horrible jobs report on that Friday, if I recall, Thursday or
17,000 jobs. Oh my God.
that's 7,000 more than I remember. I thought it was like
Oh,
10,000.
you might be right. You actually may be
You
right.
know, but wow, I'm sure
Yeah.
you're the data guy. I'm going with you, but I mean, they were expecting 100,000, and it was just a disaster. It's the
Yeah.
last report you want, the absolute nightmare report just days before an election, and they just absolutely knocked it off the front page because look at this,
Elsa Paul.
yeah, the most accurate pollster on the planet, blah blah blah. I know,
And
I
she's
just,
not.
and she's
This is a
not. That's the
scam.
irony.
We
That's the irony.
outperformed her in the caucus this year. We outperformed her in 2020. I mean,
Yeah.
she hasn't been the most accurate pollster in Iowa for a very long time. And by the way, speaking of long time ago, maybe I'm just too old, but I remember when she had John Kerry winning that state by like 8 points, and
Wow.
he didn't. He lost.
Right.
Bush
Right.
carried Iowa. Give me a
Yeah.
break. I'm
I
so over
I
it.
think we can call her the Alan Lichtman of polling at this point. You know, it's just
Alan
I think
Derelict.
she does a great job of marketing herself, but that's all it is. It's
That's
just
right.
it's simulated reality. It's not real. But yeah.
Exactly.
Let's get to the election itself because you said something I think it really got my attention in terms of your analysis and some of the big takeaways here. I forget if this was Wednesday or Friday after the election for you. You said something akin to this, that this election was in many ways even bigger than 1988, even bigger than when George Herbert Walker Bush won 40 states. What was it? 400 electoral college votes. Can you explain that? Because I think you were dead on. But how, in many ways, how are we looking at our own version of more of like a 1984 than we
Yeah.
are in 1988?
Yeah, and I would say to keep this in mind too, I actually think that it was bigger than Obama's, and the reason why
Oh,
is
yeah, that's right.
Obama's wasn't real. It was
Right,
a fake coalition. Everyone knew John McCain was going to lose. A
right.
bunch of white people with white guilt who typically vote Republican but are credentialed decided, I want to vote for the first black president. So they did. They abandoned John McCain, and it fell apart within a few months because it never was real. They weren't
Right.
voting on his policies, they were voting on the moment. All right. In an incredibly pro Democratic environment with two unpopular
Yeah,
wars
+8,
and
wasn't it?
economic
Democrat
autonomy.
+8. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. And I would say this too with 88, in the case of 88, That was a coalition on loan from Reagan. Reagan was
Mhm.
it, this is people don't I mean we're getting back there now. So I mean I'm 43, but you're getting even to when I was a kid, but I still remember it. You get older and doing what I do, obviously it's on the block. You got to know what happened here. Michael Dukakis was going to win that election, and they did run at the last minute. And by how much, guys? He was in double digits in Gallup over the summer. He was like
Yeah.
Democrat. It was Dukakis plus 16 at one point. It was huge. Um, it started to dip not when they ran the ads, the Willie Horton ads. If you go back and look, it started to dip when Ronald Reagan was the keynote speaker at the convention before Herbert Walker Bush, and he went up there and he told America, just one time, guys. Give him a chance. And the polls dramatically changed when Ronald Reagan gave what was probably one of the most powerful endorsements anyone has
Wow.
ever given anybody. Rudy Giuliani, by the way, endorsing Mayor Bloomberg is another one of these examples. When somebody's down like double digits and the country or the voters think so highly of someone that when they go to the microphone and they say, this is my guy. For me, give him a shot. And then
Right.
the polls can't even measure how fast opinion changes. And
Right.
because there was some enough time before the election, we actually could measure it. In Gallup, you can see it very clearly. And then this is important as well. He went up there and he said, read my lips, no new
Right. That was
taxes.
huge. Yep.
That was on. So he had Ronnie's coalition on loan because Ronnie said, do it. And by the time election came around, he had broken so many promises, not even an endorsement from Reagan, who they trotted out there again, even though he was in very bad health,
Mhm.
mentally and physically. He was in very bad health. It just wasn't going to have the same impact because at this point, the voters said, we did give him a chance and
Right.
you blew it. Right. And he
And
couldn't.
you started to see the Buchanan Perot populist
Yes. Which is a
breaking off.
warning.
Yeah.
Which is a warning, Dr. Steve. It's a
Mm.
warning for today. If you
Mhm.
think that the Ross Perot coalition crippled the Republican Party for like a decade, if they don't deliver on Donald Trump's agenda, they
Yeah.
will make the Perot fracture look like a paper cut.
Oh, I'll
I'm
join it.
telling
Yeah,
you.
I'd join
I
it. Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, you would. I know countless other people who would. And then there are the low and no prop voters, which is what makes this election so special for Trump.
Right.
Increased participation for the first time in my lifetime was going to favor the Republican candidate. And these people don't vote, think that their votes, doesn't matter. The system is rigged. He got these people to vote. In addition to like a group we worked with, of course, you had Musk doing stuff. Like there was a get out the vote targeting these people that Republicans have never seen before. Charlie Kirk, they obviously did a very good job in Arizona for Donald Trump. Look at the numbers.
Huge.
But a lot of this was just organic, which you can see in states like
Yeah.
New Jersey and New York,
Yes.
where there wasn't any campaigning. And
Yeah.
that's what makes this, honestly, to me, I came on your show, I would periodically come on and you and I would talk about this. You got it a lot in a way that other people didn't. We would talk about the urban rural coalition, the
Yep.
bridging this divide. And others haven't, even in landslide elections, have not been able to do that. Right.
Right.
And Donald Trump did this. And why is it so big? Not only is it more diverse than even before I forget, not the electorate changes. That's something people have to keep in mind. This isn't
Right.
88 anymore. It's much
Right.
easier to win an election if you're a Republican in 1988 than it is to win it in 2024 or 2016 or 2020.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So it's like, oh, it's popular votes less than 2 points. Well, okay. The electorate is much more diverse than it was when
Right.
George Bush won it by 3. Are you kidding me? Bush would have
Right.
lost the popular vote if the electorate was the same as today. He would have lost it.
Right. Right.
But and to come back, because people have to remember that when they're comparing these elections, you're not comparing apples to apples, you're comparing apples to oranges, and it's a little bit intellectually lazy if you don't acknowledge that fact, and that is a fact.
R Right,
Okay,
if just in parentheses,
sure.
because right along the tracking with you, right before this interview, just about an hour ago, I interviewed a fellow, Latino fellow from Miami-Dade. He's in Miami City, Miami-Dade, and man, he just said it every everyone he knew,
Supported Trump.
everyone he knew support. He knew Trump was going to crush Miami-Dade and hence crush Florida. You saw that
Yeah,
early on. I remember actually hanging out with Barnes out in Vegas, smoking cigars, and oh gosh, I can't even
great
remember. It
time.
was like a year ago, and I think it was a year ago, several months ago, and I remember looking at him and said, "Did you see Barris on? Did you hear about Barris's poll on Miami-Dade?" And he's just like, "Oh yeah, it's totally going Trump." I'm like,
Yep.
"Isn't this the same place that voted 30 points for Hillary?" It's this is a realignment on steroids, and you saw
Huge.
that very early on.
And he outperformed our poll in Florida. He did. We had him up by 11 statewide. But if you look at the Miami Dade Gold Coast region in our poll, that includes Miami, of course, Miami Dade, and it includes Palm Beach, right? And the rest of the Gold Coast counties. And um, Broward, obviously, is the
Yep.
most liberal of those. And that's why it was tied. Like the overall region was tied. It was because of Broward being for Harris, but Miami Dade was for Trump. And actually, it's not tied. I understated his support in Miami-Dade. It was Trump by 6. He almost doubled that, and that's why our poll understated him by a few points. So we had Trump plus 11. He won it by 13, which is just think about what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Think
it
what it
was a
sounds like out loud that we're
it
saying
was
these
a swing state 4 years ago. I mean,
things.
it's just I
It
mean,
was a blowout, a complete blowout. He took back Duval County, by the way, which is
yeah,
more affluent and
the
credentialed,
bellwether for
right?
Georgia. Yeah.
Bellwether for Georgia, which almost identical, by the way. They voted again, pretty close, almost, but the swing was a little bit less pronounced in Georgia, which is something Republicans have to keep an eye on. And this is important. Actually, it tells you that when the white vote swings, it will swing a little bit more R or D either way. When the
Mhm.
non white vote swings, it's going to be less pronounced for now. But in the future, that could change. And it's another cautionary tale for Republicans because it tells you that Georgia's not going to be alone.
Right.
You
Right.
better all learn to be like Donald Trump real soon
Right.
and learn to win 19% of the black vote. Learn to win 34% of the black male vote in Texas, which is just insane, but he did.
It
Right.
is. Yeah.
Insane. Learn
Yeah.
how to do that or you're going to lose the southern states. Look at
Wow.
Mississippi, how Todd ran against Trump in Mississippi. Yeah, he won the election. He won it by 5 points, brother. That's not a lot. Where did
That's not
Trump
that's a small
outperform him?
that's almost getting to be swing state status.
It's
Yeah.
a little close. And meanwhile,
Yeah.
Trump romps it. And you're tempted to say, well, any Republican would, but they wouldn't. If you look at where the outperformance from Trump is in the black belt counties. That's where the biggest outperformance compared to Republicans down ticket and other Republicans in other elections. They're in the black belt counties. And by the way, look at Western Mississippi, heavily African American, heavily Democratic, the bluest part of the state. Compare Trump to the governor. Compare Trump to himself 4 years ago. It's
Right.
those are black voters voting for a Republican president.
Wow.
I
It's
mean,
incredible.
you remember the
Incredible.
autopsy of 2012?
Oh gosh.
Now
It
you
was
got it. They got it.
Yep.
They
Yep.
got what they wanted.
They
It just
got
didn't come from
but
them.
not the way they
Not
wanted.
the
They were
way
gonna go
they
the way of identity politics, and
Yes,
this is class politics. Yeah. No, absolutely.
totally.
Yeah. What do you make of the nation swinging 4 to 6 points to the right, even more so? I mean, obviously in some of these like Texas and Florida, but the swing states
Yeah.
kind of resisting that swing.
Well, I think one off the bat, and I'm not. Don't get. I know the audience is going to be like, "Come on, don't ignore the fraud." Yeah, look, give me a second. I'm getting there. Okay, the Democratic machine is in some areas, and it's not in others. I'm getting
Mhm.
there, but it also is, and people need to keep this in mind. It's the impact or the result of an absolutely obscene amount of money that it gets put in a campaigning. I mean, the one word answer to the disparity is campaigning. We unfortunately live in a very weird political environment where 7 states get the focus and get the lion's share of the money spent on on these elections. And it's while it's supposed to be a national election, it's not. They campaign
It's
in like 7 swing states. If you were to do it organically, like let's say they weren't allowed to advertise. I mean, Kamala's out money advantage was disgusting, guys.
3-1,
It's
yeah,
disgusting.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
3-1. And the average Republican in a competitive district was three times the underdog to Democrats in the House. I mean, the money is gross on the Democratic side. It's gross on both sides. But I mean, the Democratic side is enough to make sure that like a small third world country doesn't have a single homeless person. Like it's disgusting.
that's
And
right.
this is what I mean, I think it's so gross. I hate it. I have always hated it, right? And these rent seekers, they can't put their hand in their pocket to help their fellow man. They're such shisty scumbags. We need a SNAP program because they can't do it on our own like we should as citizens, by the way. We should be taking
Right.
care of each other by
Amen.
ourselves. Not we shouldn't need a government to dock our pay so they can then take 75 cents out of every dollar and then give us a quarter to help feed the poor. Like
Right.
it's one of the most
It's
derelict things we have going
it
on.
is. It is.
But they can't do that. But they sure can dip into their pocket to make sure they bought an election or they
Yeah.
bought a senator or a congressman or a president. And so
Yeah.
a big part of that is that. I mean, if you look at the organic movement in other states that are not thought of competitive, go compare Cook County, Illinois from 2020 to 2024, folks.
It's
He's at
incredible.
36% of the vote in Cook County. That's
Incredible.
gross. He got
Incredible.
22 or 24%. That which was
Incredible.
already a strong performance, Steve. It was already
Dude, your old backyard, New York City,
New York. Look at the
Bronx,
5 boroughs. Look at the 5
Queens.
boroughs.
It's insane.
The
It's
most
insane what's going on. It's
and
just
the most non-white areas swung the
exactly,
hardest.
exactly.
Swung the hardest. Yeah.
That's I'm curious. So do you think you made I thought you made an observation about and as you guys can see, that's why you have to subscribe to Rich's stuff. Click on the link below because I watch Rich all the time. I love his stuff. But I think you made a quip about New Jersey. Well, certainly Scott Pressler, I think maybe got word of it. You know, that this new realignment, this non-white, white, populist, working class realignment now puts states in play that would have been unthinkable during the Paul Ryan, Mitch
Totally.
McConnell, Mittens Romney's years. We're talking Jersey, we're talking Minnesota, we're talking possibly New Mexico. New Hampshire and Maine always seem just always miss it. I don't know what it is. They're too libby up there.
They're
I'm an
not
old
campaigning there,
Connecticut, but
though.
I think you even mentioned Connecticut. I'm an old Connecticut
Connecticut.
boy.
That's
Yeah,
right. I mean,
yeah.
they're not campaigning, and it's really annoying me. Like they're believing the polls, the public polls, and I'm sure Tony did a decent job for Trump, although I don't think you need tens of millions of dollars to write a one-page polling memo with top lines. Like again, that's the thing I'm talking about, like how disgusting it is, the money
All the
that's
money,
spent on
yeah.
campaigning. And I know what he passes to the president. So it's like, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
But
that's what
did
he's
you
paying
you
this
remember
money
when
for?
Trump made the comment
Crazy.
about the polls? He's like, I don't
Yeah,
know. I pay
no
these guys a
wonder.
lot of money. It's
No
like, I don't know if
wonder. No wonder, Steve. I mean, when he's getting 1-2 page memos, like he's not getting exactly interactive crosstabs from like my locals community is. Like my locals community is paying $7 a month and getting more in-depth data than Tony Fabrizio is giving Donald Trump. It's
Right,
ridiculous.
right.
But they believe this crap and they don't go and campaign. Look, he went once to New Hampshire and JD Vance went once. The polls were ridiculous, did not show it competitive at all. And yet that was within 3 points again. So if he pushed for New Hampshire, he may have gotten it. Definitely Maine. I've even outlined a location strategy in the state of Maine to take the state of Maine, and they
Wow.
didn't do it. And it's a no-brainer. Wouldn't even cost that much money. By the way, the worst poll of the cycle was Anne can keep this at least as a consolation prize. She was the second worst poll of the cycle. The worst poll of the cycle was the Dartmouth College poll, which had Kamala Harris winning New Hampshire by 28 points. Unbelievable miss. Unbelievable. Or 25 points, and it was a 29-point miss. Or almost 29, because it's like, close. But just absolutely just awful polling.
I
And
mean,
they
even
believe this stuff and they don't
Kim Jong
campaign.
Un would say, "No, this is not how you do it."
Yeah, I
No,
know, that's
nobody
too
believes
much.
it. You're giving up
Nobody
the whole
believe.
game here.
Nobody believe. All right. And
Nobody
Minnesota,
believes.
And
Nobody is
Minnesota
gonna believe
again.
this.
Minnesota again. So what? Tim Walz is from Minnesota. Who gives a damn?
Yeah,
They should have
exactly.
went to Minnesota. That
It's
state
not
is
predictive. You
primed
always say
and
that.
ready to go. And there, that was just a natural inch to Trump a little bit, a couple of points, it wasn't a lot, but that's because he didn't go for it, and he should have, because there, that there's it's a complicated electorate there. There's strange, I wouldn't say strange, it's not the right word, but it's a different non-white vote
Unique.
there. Yeah,
Unique.
unique. Thank you, bailing me out
Yeah.
there. That strange was
Sui
not the word.
generis.
Yeah, unique is definitely the right word, and
Yeah.
I really think that he had an opportunity that, again, he did not take, and that's really, tragic, because I feel like
Yeah.
the country would benefit, from getting more attention than just 7 battleground states.
Right.
I'm over this, I really am.
Right.
But
Right.
yes, New Jersey, it looks like I texted Scott, and I said, "This thing's going." And, this is going, and it's
That's
kinda funny, like,
incredible.
I had a couple of people, and I didn't because Mark Robinson was running, and I thought, no, it would be kind of a joke anyway. I'm not ready to do it. But people were like, asking me to run for something, and I'm like, too many skeletons. But in New Jersey, nobody cares about those skeletons. And yeah, I would have to move back there, but I have always
Yeah.
wanted
Oh,
to
did you ever live in
to run.
Jersey at any point?
Oh, years. Yeah, I was part of the
Oh, I didn't know
Italian
you.
exodus out of the, 5 boroughs into the burbs of Jersey, and
Oh,
I
okay,
guess
so northern
Jersey's got a
Jersey,
special
northern,
part
yeah,
of my
yeah,
heart, man, so
yeah,
watching Morris County go was not surprising, but
yeah.
I was like, I'm rooting for it, and then Monmouth, I'm, like, looking at these stooges in the election mafia like Dave Wasserman. And he's like, you know what? If we're going to see that swing, he didn't even say if. He said, we're going to know right away how much white suburban women are swinging to Harris by Monmouth County, New Jersey. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy is freaking clueless. Monmouth County, Howell, Freehold. Like, zero chance this place is not going hardcore this time for
Right,
Donald Trump, because
right.
he carried it last time, but it was only like 50 to 47. He
Mm.
smacked her like a donkey in Monmouth. And Dave is like silent all night. Like, where
Well, of
are you,
course
Dave? You
he
don't want to
is.
comment anymore? You don't want to comment anymore? I'm telling you, and Bergen can be next. It's just that New Jersey is machine
Yeah,
politics,
it's machine politics,
and you
1,000,000
got to make it
more
work.
registered Democrats that just they're able to get the votes, but
Yeah.
yeah, if we can unleash the beast of Scott Presler out there and do the same kind of miracle we did in Pennsylvania. Do you think there's a way of being able to solidify sort of the MAGA dominance in the key 7 swings so we can move the swing
Yeah.
states over more to Maine and New Hampshire and maybe even Virginia? I mean, if you're saying in Jersey, I mean, so guys, if you don't know, Rich grew up in New York. I grew up in Connecticut. My grandparents grew up in Morristown, New Jersey. So we're from the same area. I mean, dude, if you could flip those red, I've lived in blue places my whole freaking life. I'm so tired of it. I mean, do you think that's possible?
I
Could we
do.
turn? Yeah.
Absolutely, I do, and I think after this election, the order was probably, New Jersey, Maine, would be
Mhm.
priorities, and Connecticut's not that far behind,
It
guys, it
was
really
single
isn't.
digits, wasn't it? Was it 9? I
It
forget what.
is I'll give you the exact last, for Connecticut, because I mean, it was close. Close for Connecticut. It wasn't quite,
Yeah.
and it was double digits, but for Connecticut, this is definitely closer.
Low double.
56 to 42. So, yeah, I mean,
Okay. All
yeah,
right. Not too bad.
but not the
14.
22-point blowouts anymore.
No, no, no.
And
It's
you gotta
half
start
that. Yeah.
somewhere. You gotta
Yeah.
start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like, New Jersey was one of only 2 states, folks, that moved more to Barack Obama from '08 to 12, and now it's single digits, and I'm telling you, he could have carried that state if he gave it
Yeah.
more attention. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at where he was ultimately deficient. He didn't make as much, of an inroad in, like, Somerset and Middlesex. Middlesex would certainly be the next big target along with Bergen County. Hudson is going to be a tough nut to crack for a while. Of course, Trenton is there. Newark, excuse me, is there, right there. Essex is 20. What did you get? Like 20 something percent of the vote. Those two, Hudson and Essex, are going to be blue, and they're going to be blue for a while. But Morris flipped. Monmouth continued to move. Ocean was 67-31. That's where Lakewood is. There's a huge population of Hasidic Jews. And by the way, there's a left wing rabbi that's still left wing. And on Saturday night, he put out, I forgot what the name of it's called, but it's basically when the rabbi tells you who we're voting for, right? And he's
Wow.
progressive, left wing, and he endorsed Donald Trump. And I
Wow.
saw those
Right.
lines in Lakewood because Laura and I know Lakewood very well. I'm like, Laura, look at these lines. Trump also carried Passaic, and Bergen was just right there, 50.7 to 47.3. This is that part of Jersey too, and parts of New York are excellent examples of the Trump or bust voter that you and I have
Yes.
talked about so many
Yes.
times.
Yes.
I didn't even know that I coined a phrase and it ended
Yes.
up a thing. And we go to her cousin's wedding in August, and we're in northern New Jersey, but it's the wedding itself is in New York. So it's folks, that's how it is. One minute you're in Jersey for a
Yeah.
reception, the next minute you're in New York for the wedding, then you're back to Jersey for the after party, right? That's the way it goes. And I'm watching these signs, Dr. Turley, and it's big red and white signs. I'm a Trump or bust voter everywhere.
Wow.
And next to those signs are signs for the Democratic congressman or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. That's it. It's
And
populism. That's populism. Yep.
populism, and the Republican Party has got to get it through their stupid little
Oh,
thickheads
gosh.
because they're out of time. By the way, every show I'm going on, I'm taking the opportunity to mock Mike Garcia, who called me a dumbass, okay, publicly twice, once on X and once on a show.
Are
Well,
they
who's
still
the
counting?
dumbass now, Mike? Look,
Are they still counting, or is he gone? Is he
no,
lost?
he's done. They are still counting, but he's
Yeah.
done. He's
He's
finished.
done. Yeah.
They flew me out there to what? Listen to me tell them what they were going to end up in 4 years ahead of schedule. Didn't take my advice. Then 22 comes along. I'm like, you're taking this all wrong. This is exactly what I told you should expect in the midterms. You're ending up here now. Do not think this is some affirmation of you. It is not. And when
Right.
Trump comes back and he's on the ballot, you're going to lose these Orange County seats and you're
Yeah.
going to run behind him in the Central Valley while he slaps. Look at John Duarte. If he crawls by the skin of his teeth this time, he's done. He's
Oh,
done.
that you know what? That's who I'm thinking about. I'm thinking of Duarte. Yeah.
Duarte's got a
Yeah, because
chance.
that's still undecided, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
yeah.
he's got a
Yeah.
chance. His lead went up to like less than 300 votes. And you separated by 200, but now it's like a little
But
less
I
than 300. But there's Merced. Trump is running obscenely ahead of him in Merced. And Stanislaus is his own backyard. Donald Trump carrying Stanislaus. It shifted 16 points to Donald Trump, and John's losing it to Adam Gray.
But I don't think they want what you're saying to be true. I think they just seem to occupy such a different cultural space than the
Yeah, I
working
agree.
class, right? I mean,
Totally agree with you.
they're elitists, they're snobs. They want to hang out with the cosmopolitan, metropolitan crowd,
Yeah.
sipping Johnny Walker Black, and they don't they don't know how to relate to the future of the
Yeah.
Republican Party.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I was just having a conversation with Darvio Morrow. He writes columns for Newsweek, right? And it's funny, he's been fighting with like those people even before the primary. Chris Wilson's one of his favorite punching bags from WPA Intel, the Rhino polling company that polled for Ron DeSantis and attacked me every day. Right?
Of
You
course,
right? Remember that?
of
He's
course,
an
it's the
idiot.
same
He's an
thing.
idiot.
They
It's a
occupy
moron.
that different cultural space. It's ridiculous.
And I'm
Yeah,
telling you, you're right. And that's what I was trying to explain to Darvio too. I don't think they really want this. They pay lip service to it, but they're
yeah,
uncomfortable.
they're
Fundamentally,
uncomfortable with
they
it.
are uncomfortable because status is like a currency in DC. They
Yeah,
have the truth is, Congressman like John Duarte, for instance, claims I have a Hispanic sounding last name, so Hispanics are going to love me. They don't. All right.
there's the
He has
identity politics. Yeah,
He's yes, and he has more in common with Adam Gray, a Democrat. He has more in common with Adam Schiff, a
yeah,
Democrat, because
yeah,
of the class that they
yeah,
both
yeah.
occupy and that they want to occupy. They don't want to give this up. So they would rather hang out, like he'd rather hang out with an Adam Schiff than hang out with like a Darby O'Morrow or hang out with the people you could see Trump mixing it up with it, a UFC or something.
Yeah.
They can't do this. They
Yeah.
need to ask themselves how much longer they want to be humiliated.
Right.
A 74-year-old billionaire white man from Queens, New York, just performed the best any Republican has ever performed with non-white voters,
Yep.
if combined. And with
Yep.
Hispanics, it's ever in
Yep.
the history of
Yep.
exit polling. We don't
Yep.
have another candidate to gauge against. It's incredible.
Absolutely. It is. It is unbelievable. I always thought that Trump cut his teeth on WWE. I think that's when he really,
So
proved his populist bona fides, getting in that ring, roughing
so
it up
yeah.
with these guys, and now our education secretary as well, which is great how it comes full circle. Linda
McMahon.
McMahon, yeah.
Connecticut, by the way. She ran
That's
for
right,
Senate
that's right.
once and
Yeah, yeah,
came.
they're in aren't they in Stanford? I forget where the
Yep.
building
Yeah,
is. We
Stanford,
wanted to
Stanford.
go and visit, but it's probably you can't. I mean, it's appointment only and all
Of
that,
course, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but,
She's something. She's
what's
something.
that?
She's
Yeah,
something.
oh, absolutely. I
She's
remember she ran
incredible.
for was it governor or senator? I can't
Senate,
remember.
and she
Yeah,
came
Senate,
very close.
Blumenthal. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not an easy guy to unseat. She came pretty close.
She did. She came very, very close, with no question. What are some of the trends, Rich, that you plan on keeping an eye on in the
Yeah.
months ahead? We've been talking about the political realignment. What are some of the things that are intriguing you as a pollster?
Right, so, one, young voters is a big deal. I don't know how else to explain this to people beyond how I've been explaining it and trying. Like, it's cool to be a Trump voter if you're 18 to 29 years old. It's cool to, like, yeah, man, I voted for Trump. And it's
Yeah.
cool. Like, if you guys play, and I don't want to mention any games, although there is one game that I play with my son. It's like a strategy war game. And somebody, like, you would go on voice or something like that. Somebody heard me. They were like, oh my God, I'm watching Sebastian Gorka, the Sunday show, and that's you. Because they do know, like, I'm in that. I'm like, oh, I've been totally outed. Because I don't want to be outed. I don't want politics involved in games, but they don't either normally. But something was very different. My son showing me meme after meme after meme. It was cool to be a Trump supporter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Republican, not so much. Not so much. Democrats lost control over a certain group of younger voters. And you can see it in the exit poll. You can see it in our polling before the election. Somehow the wokeness missed them. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Or didn't miss
Mhm.
them. Maybe they saw it and they don't like it. I don't know yet. I
That's the
don't
sense
know
I
fully.
get from my nephew who goes to a public school in Connecticut, and he's just like, "We have to take this stupid social justice class," and everybody just laughs at it.
My kids are getting growled at by furries, like, and scratched. It's insane. And people mock them and they think it's like, of
Yeah.
course, because you're mentally ill. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this isn't a civil rights issue. You're crazy.
You're
And there's
crazy.
something
Yeah.
with these younger people where those social issues certainly stuck with them. Also, I think maybe because a lot of them are in that 18 to 24, maybe some of them are old enough to remember when their parents were doing better under Donald Trump. And then they were promised the world and the adults were going to be in charge. They get Joe Biden and their parents can't pay for milk. You know what I mean? That could be, both things could be true at once. And I'm not sure we haven't, well, not, I know we haven't had enough time to study it yet. But that's one of the things, of course, that I'm going to keep an eye on, whether or not this is a uniquely Trump thing, because you can look around the map and you can see it, Doc. You'll see it. They did not do as good with young voters. Bernie Moreno did okay, and that was one of those states where I was like, is there some states where Trump wins every age group? Rick Scott, he did okay with them. But this is not a Republican thing. This is a
Mhm.
Trump thing. And if you're closely associated with Trump, if you're like one of Trump's boys, they'll vote for you too. But if they don't think you are, or they don't know you, just because you have an R next to your name does not mean that they are
Right.
going to, yeah. And then secondly, in the immediate future, I'm going to keep an eye on Trump's approval rating. His favorability rating is the highest it's ever been in our polling right now. And that means, like, the sky is the limit for his approval rating. If he goes in there and starts delivering, this guy could hit 60%. Mark
Uh,
my words. Now, they'll probably try to make it negative, but the hatred for Trump is just not what it used to be anymore,
yeah.
right? It's like relegated to a small fringe, radicalized, not even the word,
Rabid.
fanatical
Rabid, you
sector,
have yeah.
rabidly fanatic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
sector of the professional class, and that's
Yeah.
it. That's
That's
it.
it.
That's all. So we'll see.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. Rich, where can people find you? I know we'll have some links down below, but I love your locals. I'm assuming that's your
That's
locals
it.
page. Yeah.
That's definitely, yeah. I mean, we're on X, Truth, Getter, everywhere. People_pundit on X. It's just People's Pundit everywhere else. But on locals is definitely the best place to follow us. It's peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. And I was just saying this too before, but they'll get it. They'll get it first. We're gonna have this map up. It's gonna be pretty cool. Like, how did we do with the public polling project? How did we do? What do we think we can improve on? And the map's going to be a little bit more detailed this year, because every year we're getting better at showing interactives. We don't have the Nate Cohen high tech IT department, but we're definitely trying to up our game. So it's gonna be pretty cool. Looking forward to it. I think people will like it.
Oh, I know I will. I'll be looking forward to that as well. I've been interviewing a number of your fellow pollsters and election modelers, all of
Yep.
whom are taking a much deserved victory lap. You guys really are the gold standards. You really are, and I think you've proven that time and time again. But I do have to tell you, oh, Prince Richard, I got to tell you, you're the best. You
Thanks,
really are.
brother.
I
Thanks.
mean, I watched your live stream on election night. I had you on while I was sifting through all the X accounts and all the modelers I was following, and you really did for me. I want this audience to know you provided for me the single best analysis overall of 2024, bar none. And I
Thank
could
you.
I could not recommend
Thank you.
a pollster or a data analyst more than yourself. So from everyone here at this channel, because I think my channel is getting really sick of hearing your name. I name dropped you every single
That's
day
awesome, though.
leading up to the election. Well, I'm a scholar by nature, so I got a footnote, right?
Yeah,
So
right, right.
so I would say, well, Rich Barris said this and Rich Barris said that. I think people were even writing back to what did Rich Barris say today, Turley, but I got to
That's
tell you,
funny.
man, it's so deserved. You work so hard, and you mean so much to so many. So Rich, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you, sir. You did an amazing service and you continue to do so. And your work should be supported to the nth degree. So God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thanks for having me on, as always. Best to you and yours, brother. See you soon.
Absolutely, Rich. God bless. Thank you.